think we may be beaming in another panelist from elsewhere, but for the moment, Carlos, it would be great to hear a little bit about you and what you do in this space.
Thank you. I'm Carlos Prada. I'm the founder of Masterblox. We are an accelerator. We are locals. We've been empowering the Lisbon ecosystem for 2 years now. And yeah, we're big advocates here. So we are trying to help a lot of like seed round stage projects in Web3. We do some growth hacking, which is a technique we invented to create communities and stuff. But yeah, that's us in a shell.
Awesome. So I know, Carlos, that before founding Masterblox, you worked in finance and architecture.
Yes.
What drew you to kind of marketing and strategizing for decentralized projects? Because that's,
Well, we try to find the best parts of traditional finance because I believe perfect equilibrium between traditional finance and crypto is where you find the good alpha, the good like outcome. So me as an options trader, I always work like just on analytic levels and technical analysis, but then I use the creativity of the marketing side of crypto and the degen side that everybody loves. So you can find like a good outcome. And I think one of the big narratives that come from that, it's like RWAs now that are combining both of that and applications on DeFi and like settlements on the back end of banking systems. But then again, like using the creativity and like the spontaneousity of crypto,
I think it's really nice that you touched upon creativity because obviously, brands and advertising at its heart, it's all about creativity. And I wondered, Chris, what kinds of creativity is required to challenge and maybe engage the audiences you were talking about who are switching between screens and screens and screens?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I've outlined the business trajectory where we are today, but going forward, we've got this incredible database of real broadcast quality content, right? Tens of thousands of hours of content. And as you train your machine learning algorithms up on that content, you can derive all sorts of interesting information from content that people are normally oblivious to. And so we can start to do analysis of, what happens immediately before the ad break and how much impact does that have on the effectiveness of the ad in the ad break. So if there's like a fight scene, does that mean that people don't want to buy what happens next? If it's a happy Christmas scene where everyone's handing each other gifts, does that mean people want to buy when it happens next as well? And so there's an immense amount of work we can do there on understanding exactly where to place ads in the content and to achieve the most effective placement of it.
Yeah, you mentioned it's a method that takes a lot more context and work and maybe kind of deep dives. But what other things maybe are holding brands and advertisers back from, engaging with AI or using AI because it's such a buzzword, but I think there's fear too. What's holding people back?
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, the obstacle to us, I would say, so they're making it, let's talk about me. The obstacle to us, really more than anything else, is inertia in the advertising space. Advertising agencies have always worked this way. They want to continue working this way. I don't know if anyone here remembers the old advertising campaign, no one ever got fired for buying IBM, and that's definitely showing my age. But that's rather what it's like, right? I mean, they have these massive advertising budgets, like tens or $100 million of advertising budget, and just experimenting with VPP doesn't really move the needle. So we've got to help them understand the advantages. And even as they're getting increasingly uneasy about the effectiveness of their core advertising, they're still, we just got to just move them forward and encourage them to experiment a bit.
Yeah, do you feel, Carlos, that's part of your work, is kind of inspiring and kind of encouraging the experimentation here? Yeah,
experimentation is the key. I think with the new GPT models, like the best machine learning, you can also offset the overwhelmness that is happening with the keyword research, like for SEO purposes and on advertising. So for example, now ChatGPT has a new agent that you can build yourself, so you can feed it a lot of guidelines and data, and you can refine the keyword research, hence to optimize the SEO on advertising. So you can train the best sales trainee just with an AI agent for yourself. So say for example, you want to sell a bikini brand, right? You won't find just target people that goes to the beach. Potentially it could be people that is researching for soup receipt. So women that are actually trying to be on a diet. So that's how it goes on the creative levels. But before you had to do it manually. So now with AI and machine learning, you can just use all the data that you had before and now just machine learn your own bot. I think that gives an unlimited boost on your personal skills as an advertiser or optimizing those budgets and everything.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go on to a little bit, user-generated content, because it sounds like RYFF, is involved in user-generated content, but it's also quite a troublesome space, because that there might be it could be quite wild in terms of brand reputation management and that kind of thing. How can brands maybe mitigate that when they are getting involved in user-generated content, which is exciting, but also risky?
Yeah, we've had some pilot projects with some influencers, but it's something that we think is actually going to generate revenue towards the back half of next year, is where it is on our roadmap. Short form content, as I mentioned at the beginning, is very interesting because it's intrinsically agile, and a lot of these influencers are. There's only a very small number of influencers that are making money, and the rest are. But they have very tightly targeted communities, very specific. So for certain brands, they're an excellent way of reaching customers, and so we can place content in there. We can place brands in content, and again, the localization thing I think is one of the really important things. And we see, we see an opportunity for time-based campaigns as well. So for example, Pepsi-Cola is better example. Pepsi-Cola might be running a campaign during the summer, and so the Pepsi can appear there. And then in the winter, they might want to be selling Fanta, and so we can replace that Pepsi can with a Fanta can. And so that means that the influencer, who often gets a lot of their views after the event rather than live, they can carry on generating revenue from their content on an ongoing basis. Pepsi can pay on a per impression basis, so they don't have to be there at the front. They know exactly what they're getting, and both sides benefit very much from that perspective. And I agree with the point about brand safety, though, and that you have to put guardrails around it. I talked briefly about guardrails, but that's that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think also one of the biggest advancements we thought when GPT came up, like when AI popped up, that it was going to be used on data science and a lot of more technical level development stuff, but actually it fueled a huge new era of creativity, right? So with the rendering and the capabilities that you have now to generate images and text, also copy, that also is going to shift the market in the future, because before you had to hire a lot of illustration artists, even you see it on Pixar, even on the movies, all the rendering features and the creativity, it's getting easier because of these tools that are facilitating the things that had to be manual. So we don't know how it's going to play out, but I think with the power that you have now to do images on demand and copy, it will also influence all of these.
Yeah, I just thought something else relevant to that as well. We're doing some work with a major video game brand at the moment as well, and we're going to be placing, I have to be careful not to say it, but we're going to be placing content from that video game into that video game in a number of almost completely independent video placements. And back to James's point about communities, I mean, video game communities are the ground zero for Easter eggs. And so we're effectively placing Easter eggs across all this content, and we hope to generate a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, but just by having a random poster for this game in the background, something relevant, reward, all sorts of things like that. So there's a huge opportunity with that overlap of fandom and user-generated content that we can really leverage.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a really exciting space there. Carlos, you mentioned, and I wanted to go back to, there are some roles, some jobs that have certainly been made easier through AI, creative jobs that, make ads and that kind of thing. How can we ensure that humans stay in the loop?
Great question.
Doing what they're best at?
Amazing question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so in my industry, which is Web3, when it started, I thought the writers were going to be out of job, right? That's what I thought. Nobody needs writers, nobody needs PR people to write stuff. But actually we saw that the model is still very young and very wrong. So the human touch, as I said, it's going to boost the talent of each person as an individual, as a writer or a graphic designer or whatever. Even those AIs that can create websites, they're not actually tailored for the people. That's super random. So the competition is going to rise a lot. So it's not people will be out of jobs, but now it's a natural selection. So just the best will be there. to manipulate, to operate these AI tools, you know? So yeah, it's not like taking the job from humans, it's rather like natural selection. Personal opinion though.
Yeah, I mean, hugely important. I mean, one of the differentiators that we have is obviously the data repository I mentioned, but also the training of those models as well and understanding those. I didn't have time because I only saw the cover of New Yorker magazine last night for the first time, but it's incredibly relevant for the concept of training these large language models. And we're actually working with Human Protocol on this as well to help us make sure that our models are the best they can possibly be. Because at some point, you do need humans to make sure that you're not outputting garbage, right? I mean, you know, the model extrapolates based on what it's seen before, but it sometimes might draw the wrong conclusions based on what it's seen before, and you have to make sure that humans are in the loop at some point. And so, yeah, we're in technical discussions right now with the folk at Human Protocol to figure that one out.
That's really exciting. I guess, you know, we've got a couple of minutes left now, and we talked briefly about, you know, creativity and fusing, you know, advertising brands with that creativity supported by AI. What would your advice be to maybe brands or, you know, advertisers who are still hesitant but maybe want to experiment a bit? How can they safely experiment without, you know, putting their hearts on the line, you know?
I'm personally biased because I'm in Web3, so you always need to be on the verge of innovation. So of course, like try to make the best out of the next tools that people will unveil and create. But in general, I mean, keep the essence of like the respect like the human like creativity and like brilliance, you know? But yes, I always stay on the verge of the tech and the trends and everything that happens. It can go also for other industries like trading, you know? Like, of course, like the models are getting better like for chart execution and stuff like that. And execution is a very big task because it needs to be fast. But like the mastermind behind that, I mean, keep the lines straight on the operator and like the leadership. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think from our perspective, there's a couple, you can ring fence your experimentation, right? You could find a small community, you could find an influencer with a very defined community and experiment there. And then of course, because it's dynamic insertion of products, you can do it over a short period of time as well, right? You only need to run it for a week, and then like the Bailey's folk did as well. Yeah. And then you can see what happens, and then you can decide how you extend it out from there as well. So, yeah, you can make sure that you don't do anything that riles up your community accidentally, like some alcohol brands have done in the last 6 months, bizarrely, I mean, whether we agree with that or not. But you can ring fence your experiments so that it hopefully doesn't generate controversy.
Great. Well, thank you so much, both. This has been really fascinating. I've loved hearing about RYFF and hearing about your work, Carlos. So I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for your questions.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, good.